welcome to another episode of Sum of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that add up to make us who we are. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Jim. So, Lindsay, what'd you pick for us to review this time?
Well, I was staying in the theme of bad guys and fascism that we kind of have touched on a little bit, and I decided to go take us back a little ways um, to World War II and Nazis, which didn't know it was going to be so relevant this week, but here we are. Didn't realize we were getting full on Nazi salutes in public at political events, but we watched Inglourious Basterds from 2009.
Oh, Quentin Tarantino. One of
Yes.
one of his better ones, I think. One of his best ones.
Yeah, I think it's it might be one of my favorites of his. But yeah, so it's written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It's kind of one of his revenge films. He's done a few of those, Kill Bill, Django Unchained, even Once
Hmm.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's
Hmm.
that element of it, and the sort
Yeah.
of alternate history kind of thing that he's into.
Good choice, I think so. And I remember seeing this at the movie theater. Did you see it at the theater?
I'm pretty sure that I did. I was trying to think about it.
Because this came out in 2009.
Yeah, it was like summer 2009, August
Oh, okay.
2009.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I might have seen it with like my stepdad, or some
Okay.
friends, but I'm pretty sure that I saw it in theaters and definitely watched it many times thereafter. I own it on Blu-ray, which is how I watched it
Oh,
for
okay.
this. I own it on Blu-ray and digital copy. So when I went to college, I downloaded the digital copy onto my laptop so I could watch it more. Um, and then I went abroad to Europe not long after. So we were so obnoxious quoting this movie. Because like I went to Europe to
Sorry,
study
you made me
abroad.
laugh.
We were very obnoxious. So this came out in 2009. In 2010, I went to study abroad in Belgium. And so, like, all of this, like, whatever we learned about, like, World War II in school there, or like when we went to Italy, we were doing the, like, grazie, Dominic de Coco, and like the hands, like, so much that probably everyone around us was like, please stop.
Just
Please
getting
stop.
agitated.
I'm sure they were like, these Americans need to go home. But
Now,
we quoted it to death.
Now, were you a Quentin Tarantino fan before this movie came out, or was this one of the ones that you saw, before? Because I know there was a few before this one. So,
I had seen Kill Bill. I
oh,
had seen the
okay,
Kill Bill movies. I don't know if I had seen Pulp Fiction or I had only recently watched Pulp Fiction for the first time. Because
okay,
obviously, Fiction came out in like 94. I was like
right. Yeah, it
4 years old, so that was a little bit.
that's what I
Um,
was wondering. Was this like the first Quentin movie that you'd seen? And then
yeah,
you liked all the other ones, but Kill Bill came out before this, didn't it?
yeah. So I'd seen the Kill Bill movies, and I
Okay,
enjoyed those.
yeah,
So,
oh yeah,
yeah, this one
with
I
Uma.
was yes, Uma and Lucy, Vivica,
Oh
Daryl.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love
And the late great David Carradine.
yes. So this was
Yeah.
not my first Quentin Tarantino, definitely. I can't remember if I'd seen Pulp Fiction, but I'd definitely seen Kill Bill before this.
Oh, okay.
And I enjoyed that. I really loved Lucy Liu, Oren Ishii.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think which was good because I think going into a Quentin Tarantino movie, you do need to like be a little bit um it's graphically violent.
Oh, oh yeah,
So
yeah.
it is important to like be prepared.
Yeah, and for those of you who have not seen this movie, yeah, it does take place during World War II, and it's Nazis and Allied forces. So there's a few few bodies flying.
Yes, there's a lot of blood. That's a lot of blood. Just graphic violence. People being riddled with bullets.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
The special effects guys had their work cut out for them. So
yes. So you saw it in the movie theater.
Yeah, remember, I was well, saw it with a good friend of mine. I always like, any movie about World War II,
Hmm.
I'd seen we had seen Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction, we were a fan of his stuff. Also, the one where he was with George Clooney, about the vampires. He plays George Clooney's brother
Oh,
in
okay. From Dusk
so
Till
we
Dawn.
Dust Till Dawn, which we just like, and that was
Hmm.
a bloody violent movie. So I'm sorry, we're guys, we like bloody violent movies. So,
I'm
but
not
yeah, we went to
opposed.
go see this, and then it was really good at the movie theater on the big screen. So,
Yeah. No, for sure. I also appreciate a World War II movie. I think to me that is just like a very interesting time period of history
mm-hmm,
because there's like so many things happening and there's a lot like socially, right? Like I studied sociology and like so I'm interested in like the people of it all and like the politics of it all. So I think obviously when you have, you know, fascism in Spain and in Italy, and then the sort of like rise of Nazism and like the questions around like how something like that can happen, right? How people can tolerate something like the Holocaust and become Nazis, and how the United States can do nothing about it. And then you also have like, you know, Pearl Harbor and like the Pacific Theater, like so lots of things,
yeah,
Japanese
the
internment, like lots of things happening at the same time. I think that to me always makes it a really interesting period of history.
agreed. And yeah, uh, for those of you who don't know, Lindsay and I do have worked with veterans, and then in our course of our time, of course, maybe more so than Lindsay, worked with World War II veterans. It's always interesting to hear their stories, and they're not labeled. They're labeled the world the greatest generation for good reason, I believe. So, not
Hmm.
saying that every generation is not great, but they did struggle through a tough time. They went from the depression to a world war, and then the coming home from the war, and then trying to rebuild their lives. So,
Yeah, it was huge. And I think it's especially interesting. I think part of the reason why this was like stuck in our minds so much when we went to Europe is like, this is we're here, right? Like half this movie takes place in Paris, and like we're in Paris and we're in Belgium and like we're in Germany, and you see all this stuff of like what happened. It's like
yeah, I'm
right in
sure
front
that.
of you, right? Like we went to Normandy and we went to like, they're still on the shores, and like there's a place called Pont d'Arc, which is like near the beach, but it's like in the north of France. There's with like bunkers, which is
Mm,
basically where like the Nazis were when people were storming the beaches. There's big craters from bombs there, like it's all still there. So it's I think like something like this feels extra like present when you're there. And like, I
I'm
went
sure.
to they took us to this place. They didn't tell us actually. We signed up for a trip to go to this place in Belgium called Breendonk, which was like a fortress at first, but then during World War II it became like a small concentration camp. And we were like, "Oh, cool, you could have told us that before we came here." But
Oh my.
um we went there. I went to Auschwitz when I was there. So like, the sort of the history is like laid bare before you in a way that it's not here, I
Can you
guess.
feel that presence when you're there? I was gonna.
Hmm.
Okay,
It's like,
I've heard that, but I've never. You're the first person I know that's been there in person. So,
yeah, it's like heavy, heavy there for sure. And like, I'm glad I went. I wouldn't go again, but it's like, yeah, even I went with this guy who was like a big old goofball, but like, even he is like manages to be somber at
yeah,
at a place
a
like that.
place like that, I'm sure that
Yeah.
they talk about you can feel that presence or that history there when
Hmm.
you're there, that of the evil that was perpetrated there.
Yes, for sure, for sure. As a side note, I would also recommend the movie. It won like the best international feature last year, but The Zone of Interest, just when we were talking about Auschwitz, made me think of that. So it's about like the commandant of Auschwitz, like his family. And so it's like at their house, but like just over the wall is Auschwitz, right? And so like you're just like seeing smoke and like hearing noises like in the background while they just like live their life like nothing's happening. And it's a really interesting perspective.
Okay. All right. Good
So
recommendation.
I
I'll look
recommend
for
it
that.
to people.
Okay.
Um, So, Inglourious Basterds. So this follows basically a couple of revenge plots against Nazis. So, they're kind of two that intersect at the end of the movie. So, one is a young woman named Shoshana Dreyfus, whose family was killed by Nazis, which we'll talk about in more detail when we go through the movie. And so it doesn't seem like this wasn't like a plan of hers she was really leading up to, but it just sort of like basically the Nazis kind of fell into her lap and she's like, all right, well, here we go. You're going to show up on my doorstep.
Hmm.
I'm going to
Well,
make you pay.
it,
And the other part of it is the titular Inglorious Bastards, which is a sort of small group of primarily Jewish American soldiers who are operating under the auspices of the OSS, which is the Office of Security Services,
strategic services.
Strategic Services. So that's sort
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah. The
um,
forerunner of the CIA.
yeah, so that existed during World War II. So they are kind of a small unit that is really just there to like take out Nazis. And they eventually become part of an operation to take out Nazis, kind of, and that's where they converge with Shoshana. So yeah, it's violent, as we said, but it's also funny.
It is. I agree. Some of it's laugh out loud funny, and I know that may sound strange to some of our audience who haven't seen the movie, but there are moments when yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny, and it's like it's dealing with serious stuff, but I think it is a sort of like it's funny in the way of like catharsis, right? Of
Hmm.
like releasing that like tension, kind of. And certainly, as we were just talking about before we recorded, there was criticism around it that sort of these a lot of these violent characters are Jewish and it's making them like look as bad as the Nazis. I would
Yeah.
disagree.
Yeah. I
But
was good. Yeah.
I can't tell like a Jewish person how to feel about the depiction of Jewish people. So I think that, that's like a valid feeling. I think I don't know, like I would never say that like I think of like John Brown, for example, right?
Hmm.
Who is going to take out like leading rebellion to like kill slave owners. I don't think that makes him as bad as
The slave owners.
slave owners. Certainly some of the violence that the bastards are inflicting is particularly violent, but I still don't think it compares.
No, not when you talk about the extermination of 6 million people. And
Right, right. And certainly there's a part where like Aldo Raine, who's the head of this unit, says Nazis don't have any humanity, but I don't think he's saying it like when a Nazi says Jewish people don't have humanity, they are saying it just based purely on the fact that they're Jewish. Like it is full anti-Semitism. He is saying Nazis don't have humanity based on their actions.
right, that yeah.
So, you know, I find that a little bit different. But I think, it is like it is very violent and
It is, and
um,
they're not. Yeah, and they're not passive in any by any stretch
yeah.
of the imagination.
Hmm. Yeah.
The soldiers, the Jewish American soldiers.
Yes. I think that's this is gonna sound weird, but it's like the violence almost is like to like a comic book level. Like it's
Hmm.
almost the
Oh,
violence is also a little bit comical, if that
mhm.
makes sense. Like it's not
Yeah.
because it's just like it's just overkill. It's
It,
like absurd.
it really is. Yeah,
It's like
it's to the extreme. Yeah, it's
yeah,
almost like comic book, uh,
yeah.
you know, uh, Marvel movie, sort of, violence. It's, you know,
Yes. Yes. And I think that's also like characteristic of Quentin Tarantino.
Oh yeah, if you
Like,
yeah, if you go back to all Kill
I
Bill
think of
and
the guy in the back seat in Pulp Fiction. He like just like exploded. Like, need Harvey Keitel to clean some stuff up in this movie.
oh yeah.
Well, the movie's kind of broken up into five like chapters, so that kind of like speaks to all these storylines. The final chapter is where it all sort of ties together. We'd sort of go back and forth a little bit between Shoshana and the bastards, and then at the end, everyone is in the same place in Paris, à Paris.
Nice French accent, by the way.
Merci beaucoup. It was easier watching this knowing some French because I didn't have to look at it the whole time for the subtitles. I
Oh
could look
yeah.
away for a minute.
Oh, not me. No, I was lost. So, but yeah, the subtitles were had to be on. Thank goodness. So,
Although, like, French people speak in like cursive. So sometimes when Melanie Laurent was speaking French, I'm like, I can get a couple words. When the non-native French speakers were speaking, it's easier because they talk a little slower. I'm like, okay,
it's not quite as quick or as accented or yeah.
yeah.
So,
So, speaking of France, chapter one, the first chapter is called Once Upon a Time in Nazi-Occupied France. So, which Jim was saying that could have been the movie. This movie could have been titled Once Upon a Time in like Germany, Once Upon a Time
yeah.
in World War II, just like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So we're at a French dairy farm that is run by a man is there chopping wood. His name is Perrier Lapedite, and the Nazis roll up. We get a little bit of Fury Elise when we start to see them. And in walks Colonel Hans Landa of the SS. Hans Landa is played by Christoph Waltz. He won an Academy Award for his role in this movie as Best Supporting Actor. And I think Jim and I agree, well deserved.
Mhm.
The movie was also nominated for several other, it was nominated for 8 in total. That's the only one it won, but it was also nominated for things like Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, and Best Director, among others. But he won, and I think if you see this movie, he is incredibly dynamic. I think this is the first movie that like American audiences became familiar with him.
Okay.
He's from Austria, but I think he was doing like films in Europe
Oh,
before this. Christoph Waltz, in addition to this movie, he was in Django Unchained. I think he's one of the highlights in this movie for me. Obviously, he's playing a horrible person, but he really
he does it well
delivers.
though.
Yeah. Yes, he did win. He won again for Django Unchained.
Oh, okay.
But he's been in other movies. He was in uh he's the bad guy in some of the latest James Bond movies. He's
Oh yeah.
Blofeld in
As Blofeld, yeah.
Spectre and No Time to Die. He was in the movie Big Eyes, which is a Tim Burton movie with Amy Adams. The French Dispatch, which is a Wes Anderson
Oh, okay.
anthology. But yeah, I think this is like what I always think of him. He's Hans Landa for me always, which is probably not maybe great to be, but as you see in this film, so in real life, Christoph Waltz is from Austria, so he speaks German, but he's also fluent in French and English, and he speaks Italian in this movie, which apparently he doesn't speak, but he speaks it as if he knows it. Like he does it really well.
Mhm.
But just in this first scene, we see his fluent French and English back and forth. So he's speaking French to Monsieur Lepedit because they are looking for where the Jewish families in this area have gone to. And they have accounted for all the families except for the Dreyfuses. So he's asking Monsieur Lepedit, like, where, oh, I heard some rumors. But first, actually, he switches to English. And he says, he's like, oh, I kind of run out of French, which is such bullshit because he's speaking perfect French. He
Excuse me.
knows he knows that the Dreyfuses are being hidden there, and he knows they won't understand him. So he can talk about them without them knowing. So they switch to English, and he pulls out his fancy pen and his inkwell and his paper so he can take notes. And so he's asking about the families. Where are the Dreyfuses? And he Monsieur Lepedit says he only knows rumors. And this is like, oh, I love rumors. He's like reveling in his evilness. Like Hans Landa has fun doing this like awful stuff. But the guy says, I think they went to Spain, and he's like, can you like confirm the ages of these people? Da da da. And then we see a shot. They're under the floor. It's just a little like cottage, little shack, basically. And so they're under the wooden floor. This family, this Jewish family, they're laying under the floor. And it's like, holding their breath.
And yeah, and they look terrified because
Yes.
yeah, you can see it in their eyes that
Yeah. And then I think when it cuts back to Monsieur Lapadite, you can see in his face, like, he's also, he's
mhm.
trying to present as like stoic, but like, he's like, oh shit, you know? Hans Landa talks about he is known as the Jew hunter, and he talks about how Germans are like hawks and how Jews are like rats, which is not he doesn't mean it as an insult, right? Because
Yeah,
rats can get everywhere and like hide and survive and all of this stuff.
and yeah, and live in a hostile environment and then know how to elude their predators and so on. And yeah, he doesn't. It when he first says it, you think it's an insult, but then he says I would not want to live like that. You know,
Hmm. Yeah. And he says that he's better at being the quote unquote Jew hunter because other Germans, because Germans are like hawks, they look at places where hawks would hide. But he knows. Um, he pulls out a comically large pipe. So Monsieur Lepidite is smoking a normal, like, whatever you call it, like
like a
corncob pipe.
corncob pipe. Yeah,
Yeah.
very simple, handmade.
And he pulls out this, like, it looks like a freaking trumpet. Like, the, like, opening of the pipe is ginormous. You know more about pipes than I do,
Well,
certainly.
it reminds you if you've ever seen any of the old Sherlock Holmes movies with Basil
Mm.
Rathbone, he smokes a pipe sort of like that. But yeah, it's a huge meerschaum. It's that white ivory, like carved rock. But yeah, it's very ornate, very elaborate. But it is huge. It probably looks like it holds a half a pound of tobacco.
Right. And also Christoph Waltz is not a big man, so I think it
That
just like
it
looks
it does.
comical.
It does. It looks out of place. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's it almost hides half of his face when he's smoking the pipe. So
Right. Right. So eventually he just comes out. He's like, we know that you're hiding the Dreyfus family. And Monsieur Lapidite has three daughters that are with him. He sent them outside. They're outside with the other SS men. And so he has to just admit it too, because he's really worried that they're gonna be killed, right? Because they're outside with,
or worse.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
All of the above. They're outside with the SS guys. So he just has to say, like, yes, they're here. They're under the floor. And kind of points out where they are. And just crying, just tears coming down his face. Because it's obviously like devastating, right? You don't like hide someone with the intention of giving them up. But it's
Right.
like, he doesn't want his daughters to be hurt in any way. So,
Because
um,
because Londa says, in return for you telling me this, you will not be punished. You'll be actually rewarded. We'll leave you alone. We won't bother you anymore.
mhm.
If he gives them up, is
Yeah,
basically what. And he thinks. I guess he thinks he's looking out for his family as opposed
yeah,
to.
yeah. I also wonder, obviously, like we don't see what happens to him after, but like,
I know.
did
I know
eh,
because yeah,
as we discussed with Empire Strikes Back, making deals with the bad guys
not
doesn't
usually.
always work out. Although we learn at the end of this movie, sometimes when the bad guys try to make deals with the good guys, doesn't work out either. Turnabout is fair play, as they say. So, Londa switches back to French so the Dreyfuses can hear him. He makes it sound like he's leaving. Thank you for your help. We'll be out of your hair, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
We're
he
our
calls
business
in,
is done.
yeah,
We're
bring your daughters back in. But he's bringing in his other men, and they just open fire into the floor, just riddle it with bullets. But one person escapes, runs away, and she's like too far.
Hmm.
Like Londa pulls up his pistol, but she's much too far for him to shoot. She's crying. She's covered in blood. And he just says, he kind of smiles. He's like,
Yeah,
it's like a game to him,
it
which
really
is
is.
just like
It's
gross. He says, "Au revoir, Shoshana." And that's the end of that chapter. Shoshana, who we'll see again later, is played by the French actress Melanie Laurent, who I think is also a director.
oh
Yeah,
really?
she's a filmmaker too.
Oh,
She has also been in Now You See Me. She's in a movie, and these are like American movies, obviously. She's in this movie Beginners with Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer. That's really good. But yeah, so she plays Shoshana. She's French, but she's really good in this too, I think.
yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And next we get to chapter two. Little tone shift. Chapter two is called The Inglourious Basterds. Just a note. So Inglourious Basterds, that's the name of the movie. It's also spelled incorrectly. It is the title is a reference. It's inspired by a 1978 film. It's an Italian film called The Inglourious Basterds by the Italian director Enzo Castellari. They spell it right, but this is sort of a deliberate misspelling. So if you see it in the title and you're like, why did she spell Inglourious Basterds wrong? I didn't. Quentin Tarantino did it on purpose, okay? So next is Inglourious Basterds. So we meet Lieutenant Aldo Raine, which is who's played by Brad Pitt. You should know who Brad Pitt is, the former Mr. Angelina Jolie, although it sounds like he was not a great guy in that marriage. So we maybe don't love him as a person anymore. Doesn't seem like his kids do. They're all trying to drop Pitt from their names. So, but he's been in a million things. I think we maybe first met him or nearly first met him in like Thelma and Louise. Those
Hmm.
were early Brad Pitt days. For me, like this movie comes to mind. He was also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for which he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Quentin Tarantino really bigging up these supporting actors.
Yeah.
If you want the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, star in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Um,
Or
I
look
think
like
of
Brad
like,
Pitt.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, Christoph Waltz doesn't look like Brad Pitt, and he won twice with Quentin.
No, but
So,
he's still a good looking guy. So
yeah, yeah.
just yeah, I'm just saying.
But I mean,
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, though.
Mm.
Speaking of good looking, I always think of when he played Achilles in the movie Troy.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps the best a man has looked. Moneyball, the Ocean's movies with George Clooney, Interview with a Vampire.
Oh yeah. With Tom Cruise.
Yeah, when he's Louis, right? And
Right.
Tom Cruise is Lestat.
Lestat.
But yeah, Brad Pitt, a million things. You've seen him. If you don't know
Yeah.
who Brad Pitt is, like, I don't know, how's The Rock? You're under. So he is Aldo Raine. He is making a small unit of Jewish American soldiers. They're gonna parachute down into France, looking like civilians, fight with guerrilla tactics, and their mission is to kill Nazis. Period. We're not in the prisoner taking business. We're in the killing Nazi business. We're not here to look after their humanity because Nazi ain't got no humanity, is what he tells them. They will be known and feared by the Germans. And they all take on a debit. He doesn't say debt. I was like, do
Right.
you mean
Yeah.
debt?
Yeah.
Debit.
Debit.
They all owe him a debit of 100 Nazi scalps. You will get me my scalps, et
And
cetera, et
he's
cetera.
talking literally.
Yes. And then cut to Hitler. I think this was like a very a famously a gif that people used a lot at the time, and it's Hitler going 9999999
Yeah.
because the bastards have become well known, right? They are like legendary. One of them is known as the Bear Jew, which he's just big, I guess.
I
He's a bat.
guess.
I don't know why, like, oh, bear. Like,
But
they
he
all have
doesn't look
nicknames.
he doesn't look that big.
No, and he's not like especially like hairy. Like, I don't know. But anyways,
I know.
they call
So
Donnie the Bear Jew, but like, they, and Hitler is mad that they have such, like, they are legendary. that they inspire such terror among the Germans. And he meets a survivor of the bastards. And we see his story unfold via flashback. So the bastards have clearly ambushed this group of Nazis. They're some of them are busy uh, getting their scalps for Aldo.
And we see this. Yeah, we see
We
him
see
taking
it's
scalps.
we said it's graphic. It is sure
Yeah.
is graphic. Um, and we get to kind of get acquainted with the crew. We get a little guest narration from another Quentin Tarantino favorite, the Samuel L. Jackson,
Yeah.
who, if you don't know, was in Pulp Fiction, very famously. He's in The Hateful Eight and a million other movies, but those are his kind of Quentin Tarantino things. But I think his role in Pulp Fiction, I think, is one of his
Mm,
most famous
I agree.
roles.
Iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, like the quotes, the like
Right.
the Bible verse, you know. They actually, it's funny because in Captain America Winter Soldier, when they fake Nick Fury's death, they put that verse on the headstone. If you look at the end when they have like his fake Nick Fury's
Oh, I
headstone,
didn't know that.
it says
Oh,
like
oh,
Ezekiel whatever, and
oh,
that's
oh. That's what he's quoting in Pulp Fiction.
which I think is
Interesting.
yeah. And you will
Ooh.
know I am the law. I was like, they speak English in what? Anyways, so he introduces us to one gentleman named Stiglitz, Hugo Stiglitz, who is German, and he actually not a fan of the Nazis.
No. It
Which
was
this
in
is
the
how you
German
know.
army.
Yes, he was
It,
in the
it,
he was like drafted into the German army. He was an enlisted man. Not a fan. He killed 13 Gestapo, which is like the secret police. So these are like not just regular dudes.
right.
And he was being taken back to Berlin, but the bastards busted him out of jail before he could get back there and recruited him. So again, we get some great like Aldo Raine has some great dialogue in this movie. He's like, we're a big fan of your work. We're shows a lot of talent, but right now you're an amateur. You want to go pro? And then my favorite line, which Jim has heard me say 65 times, we ain't in the prisoner taking business. We're in the killing Nazi business, and cousin, business is a booming.
I love when you say that.
It's my favorite. Shout out to East Tennessee. Uh, so anyways, back in the story this guy is telling, there's one of the I think they're like higher ranking officer of the Germans they have captured.
Yeah,
They
it's a
want him to
sergeant, I think, or
yeah.
somebody like that. Yeah, so
They want him to tell them, point on a map to where we know there's more Germans around here. Where are they? How many? What weapons do they have? And he says no. And then we hear the sound of a bat hitting like a wall. So slowly making its way toward us. They're in front of like a little like aqueduct,
yeah.
you know, like stone bridge.
Mhm.
So he's coming out of there and then Aldo shouts for Donnie. Donnie is the bear Jew. And Aldo does ask this German, like, have you heard of this person? And he's like, he beats people with a club, and he's like, he crushes Nazi skulls with a bat. And so he says, Donnie, we got a German here who wants to die for his country. Oblige him. And out comes Donnie Donowitz, played by Eli Roth. Eli Roth, I think, I can't think of many other movies he's in. He's also director. So he directed like the Hostel movies. He's a big like horror
Oh, okay.
director. But I can't think of like he directed Cabin Fever. There was one recently that was on Peacock called like Thanksgiving or something.
He looks
But
familiar. If you see his face, you've seen him, I'm sure, in different things. So,
yes, he was on the show The Idol, which
oh, okay.
people the recent one with Lily Rose Depp and The Weeknd that was like supposed to be terrible. He's in that. So anyways, Eli Roth is Donnie Donowitz. And Eli Roth is Jewish in real life too. I think many of these actors, like Brad Pitt is not, but like Eli Roth is. I think BJ Novak is. Some of these other actors are Jewish in real life. Anyways, he comes out, the other bastards are applauding him as he strolls out with his bat, and he asks the German, like, he points at his medal and he's like, "Did you get this for killing Jews?" And the guy says, "No, it's for bravery." And
Mm.
then he beats the shit out of him with a bat. And then he narrates it. He has a Boston accent and he narrates it as if I don't remember all the names. So you can supply the names, but he's like, and he hits it out of the park in Fenway. And
Well, Teddy fucking Williams, so like Ted Williams, the great baseball player, and a couple of other guys, yeah, where he talks about, yeah, like he's like he just bested their home run record. So,
yes.
and by the way, for those of you a little squeamish, it is a violent beating scene. So
Yes. A Louisville Slugger is making contact with this man's cranium.
correct, several times, and
And you hear it, you
yes,
see it,
see it, and
it's graphic.
mm-hmm, yes. In the meantime, his two other comrades are watching this.
Yes. And first of all, the one guy acts just like one gets up to like move and the other bastard just shoots him and they're like, "God damn it. Like you're not supposed to do that." So then the third one comes over and they're like, "Will you show us?" And he immediately is like, "Point. What else do you want to know?" He gives them all the information. And they have another one of the bastards who is a German speaker, Wiki. Wilhelm Wiki, is that his name?
Yeah,
Yeah, Wilhelm Wiki. He is Austrian Jewish and he had fled to the United States, obviously when like Hitler took over and things started in Germany and then he was drafted into the United States military once he had immigrated. Which I was like, damn, they work quick. You just got
yeah,
here. Here you go.
that's right. Yeah,
Heading back over.
here's your orders. Yeah,
Yeah, so he and Vicky and Stiglitz are the two that are kind of German area born. They speak German. So he translates, but this German kid is like, "What do you want to know? I'll tell you everything." And they are like, "Okay, great. Cool. You're good. We'll let you go. But after this war, when you get home, you gonna take off that uniform?" And they just can't have people not knowing that he's a Nazi, right? People
right.
need to know that you're a Nazi. So they're like, "Okay, well, we're gonna leave something for you." Because, and also, as the guy is telling Hitler this story, he can't tell Hitler, "Hey, I told him all this
Yeah,
information about the German army." So Hitler's like, "Why did they let you go?" Well, it's to inspire terror among the other Germans. And he removes his cap, and they have carved a swastika into his forehead. So he can never claim to not be a Nazi. They have also another good line as whoever's cutting this this particular swastika. Aldo Raine says, "You know how to get to Carnegie Hall, don't you? Practice." So they got, you got to work on your not your swastika carving into people's foreheads. Skills. Those aren't just innate. You got to work on it.
and he's by the way, he's not using a precision instrument to do this. This is a huge Bowie knife. So for those of you who have ever ever seen one or looked there, but it's like probably a 10 or 12 inch knife blade, and then and then he's just carving this, like slicing it into his forehead. So that's his modus operandi. It's his instrument of choice. It's not a scalpel.
Not at all. Not at all.
So
And then we move to chapter 3, which is German Night in Paris. So this is June. This is 4 years after Shoshana's family was killed that we saw at the beginning. So she right now is living in Paris. She's living under a different name, Emmanuelle Mimieux. She's basically assumed this identity based on this family. She says they're her aunt and uncle that owned this movie theater that she's now owning and operating. And of course, like this is part of This is when Paris is occupied by the Nazis. So they have to show like you see at the beginning, she's got like Leni Riefenstahl films there, which are like if you don't know, she made like Nazi propaganda films. Very like she was a famous director and trying to show like the glory of the Aryan race and whatnot. There's a German soldier who comes up to her and he like will not stop talking to her. His name is Frederick Zoller. He is played by Daniel Bruhl, who I think of him. He was the guy in he was in some Marvel stuff. He was on
Captain
Captain
America
America and the
Civil
Winter
War.
Soldier. Yeah, he was in Civil War and the Winter Soldier.
Winter, yeah, he played the bad dude
The
or one
bad
of the bad
guy.
dudes.
Helmet Zemo.
Oh,
Zemo.
that's it. Yeah.
But I also think of him, he's in the movie Rush,
Uh,
the Formula One movie with Chris Hemsworth.
oh, I haven't seen
He
that.
plays Nicky Lauda. It's a good movie.
Oh, okay.
Because he's like Nicky Lauda who like got like he had like a horrible crash and then like kind of
Crash.
gets back into it.
Yeah.
So, but he's been in like The Bourne Ultimatum, The Fifth Estate, A Most Wanted Man. So he's been in a lot of things. He was on the show The Alienist, which was like a period show with like him and like Dakota Fanning were on
Oh,
it.
no, I did watch
Um,
that. That was very good. Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
So Daniel Bruhl, also a very good actor. He was in a bunch of things. Basically, in this movie, Frederick Zoller is a German soldier who he basically like was by himself in a tower and took out a bunch of Americans and now they've made his story into a propaganda film and he's playing himself. So he's like very well known among the soldiers and Shoshana does not give a shit. It's kind of funny the boldness with which she talks to him.
Yeah,
She's just like
considering that she's in a town occupied by Nazis and
is like a Jewish person hiding. But
right,
I love
yeah.
it because she's
It-
just like
yeah, she's
why are
very
you why are you
yeah.
here? Like he like talks about being she's like you're not my friend. I don't want to be your friend. Like cuz he like he's bothering her there and then the next day she's like at a cafe looking incredibly French. She's got like her little hat on, her little book, her little cigarette. It's just
And
like the
her
Frenchest.
glass of wine. Yeah,
Yes, like
yeah.
the most stereotypical French thing if only she had like a baguette. Uh and he like
Isn't that what you looked like when you were in Paris? Didn't you sit at
exactly.
a cafe with a glass of wine and a book and a beret and a cigarette?
Yes.
Yeah,
Of
so you
course.
yeah, yeah.
I don't smoke, but when I go to
And
Paris, it's the law actually.
I was gonna say I think you have to while you're over
Right.
there, isn't it? Yeah, so
Um, he like walks by and sees her in there and then goes and joins her and it's like she's like can you leave me alone damn so yeah he fought off like 300 soldiers and not only is he in a propaganda film he's in a propaganda film made by the propagandist Joseph Goebbels. If you somehow don't know who Joseph Goebbels is I would encourage you to Google. He was like one of Hitler's like he's like the second in command.
I
He
was gonna say
developed all
he's
the
yeah,
Nazi
second.
propaganda. If you've seen any of that, all the like horrible stuff about Jewish people, like that was him. So they made this movie called Nation's Pride. So the Nazis come to meet with Zoller and Goebbels, and they invite Shoshana because Zoller has this great idea that they will move the premiere of his movie to her theater. Doesn't seem like she doesn't have a lot of like choice. Like she was putting up the marquee and a dude from the SS is like, get in the car, get your ass in the car. And she arrives and Zoller's like, I'm so happy you accepted my invitation. And she says, invitation?
Yeah, it was like I guess she thought that she was being taken away and was going to be shot. You know,
Right. But she was brought to lunch.
yeah, yeah, at a nice restaurant with
Restaurant.
restaurant. I'm sorry, I don't
Yeah.
do it like you, but with Dr. Goebbels and
Yeah. Goebbels and his translator and her poodle who sits in a chair at the table. And then the SS guy and Zoller. And then one more person comes. And it's Hans Landa. And she immediately is like, the music. It's like the music sounds like a pounding heart. It's like
yeah,
doom, 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 doom. And it's like, yes, that is exactly how it feels.
it does. Yeah, it's very palpable, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah,
Mm-hmm. And even worse, everybody else has to leave. They're all leaving. And he's like, oh, I'll stay here with her because I'm the head of security. So if we're going to do it at her theater, I need to talk to her.
right.
of course it's like she's like, does he know who I am? He makes her order strudel because he talks about how great the strudel is at this place. And then to drink, he orders her a glass of milk. So it's like, oh, he knows. He knows who she is.
Because he wanted a glass of milk. He drank a glass of milk at the house at the very beginning of the movie because they offered him wine. He said, "No, I'd like a glass of milk." And then, yeah, I wrote down, "Gosh, does he know that she's Shoshana?"
Yeah.
Of
And
course
it's
he
like
does.
he does, but he's like he's not doing anything.
Playing with her like a cat and a mouse.
Exactly. Exactly. He's just toying. Like, again, as we said before, like he gets pleasure out of this. He enjoys this. But yeah, so they talk a little bit. We also know, as an aside, her like lover, her boyfriend, who is the projectionist at the theater, is a black man named Marcel. And they're like, oh well, he can't be the projectionist. The Führer will not want a
Mm-hmm.
black guy being the projectionist. So you have to run, you know how to run the projector, you have to do it. And then he goes, there was something else I wanted to ask you. And then he just pauses and looks at her for a very long, what feels like a very long time. And then he's like, oh, I forgot what it was. Silly me.
Yeah, and just laughs it off, just like
Yeah. Yes. And then he leaves. And as soon as he leaves, she's like just like these deep breaths and like tears. It's like everything that she was like holding together just like falls out.
It's a great performance in that 30 seconds after he
Mm.
walks out, and then she's able to finally, like you said, just let it go, and then you can just, it's
Mm.
almost like a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, she like waits, she watches him
Right.
leave, and then she's like, "Oh God," like that kind of thing.
Yeah, even biting her hand, I think, a little bit to keep from screaming, because you think,
Yeah,
she thinks, or I guess I thought, she was going to actually, just literally scream or pass out.
right, right. And like the first time you see this, like you don't know
Right. You don't know if he knows, or because, or is, but he does.
or what he's gonna do. So yeah, it's gonna be at her place, and she's like, "All right, plan, Marcel. Here's what we're gonna do. If this theater is gonna be filled with Nazis, then we are burning this motherfucker down full of Nazis." Because they have a large nitrate film collection, and nitrate film is incredibly flammable. It burns like Samuel L. Jackson narrates this too,
Like
but
it's
it
like 10 times the rate of paper.
yeah, it burns 10 times faster than paper. So they're
Yeah.
like, we're just gonna pile up all this nitrate film
Yep.
and let it on fire.
Yeah, we don't even
Boom.
need explosives. We'll just set the film on fire, and then the cinema will go up like a torch.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
And
plan.
yeah. But first, she wants to record a little message for them too. She's like, they're gonna hear from me. They need to know who's killing them.
She, Shona's got it going on.
Yeah. She's like, all right. It's like she's like, they just strolled into my of all the cinemas in all the world. They strolled into mine.
See, there you see. But yeah, it just
Now
fell
they
into
gotta
her
die.
lap, and then yeah, now she's like, well, guess what? Yeah, you guys can have your premiere here. That's fine.
Absolutely. And it'll be the last thing you ever do.
Right. The
Oh,
more the merrier. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring them all in. Chapter 4, Operation Kino.
It's my
We
favorite chapter, by the way, readers. It
it
was,
is a fun one. Things go left, but it's good. We meet another famous face, Lieutenant, or as the British say, Lieutenant Archie Hickox, played by Michael Fassbender, who you may know from such things as the newer X-Men movies. He played Magneto. The movie Shame, he was in that movie, like, what is it? The Light Between Oceans, with him and Alicia Vikander. He's married to Alicia Vikander in real life.
I didn't know that. So
Uh, yeah, they're married, they have some
I
kids.
know him as the android in Alien,
Oh,
with
Prometheus.
Prometheus, which is
Hmm.
actually other than the original Alien, my favorite Alien movie.
Not the second one. I heard the second one's supposed to be good.
The second, oh yeah, you're. I'm sorry, yeah, the second one is good, but I do like Prometheus, and he's because he's really good in it in
Mm,
Prometheus. So,
nice. But yeah, so he was in a couple of those movies. He's in 12 Years a Slave. He played Steve Jobs in one of those movies because
oh okay,
I feel like there was like a handful of Steve Jobs movies. He played Steve Jobs in one of them.
one of those.
Um, he's been in a bunch of other things, but yeah, so another very prolific actor. But he is playing Lieutenant Hickox, and he comes to meet with Winston Churchill, who is played by Jim. You can talk about him.
Rod Taylor, who was famous for he was in The Birds, The Time Machine. He was from the 50s and the 60s, and then this was his last role actually before he passed away. He passed away in 2015, but and he had retired. But Quentin Tarantino wanted him to play Winston Churchill, and he did it because of Quentin Tarantino's passion, is what I read that for the movie. And and it's a cameo role really, but I've always been a big fan of Rod Taylor. So
Yeah, it's great because he just kind of sits over to the side and smokes a
yeah,
cigar and
cigar and
occasionally like pipes up.
yeah, just says a couple of lines. And then the other person in the room is
Is General Ed Fennick, played by Mike Myers, who you know from Saturday Night Live, the Austin Powers movies, Shrek,
and if
various.
you didn't know it was him, you wouldn't know it was him.
I mean,
Well, a little bit of it, but I mean, just if you looked at him, you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's Mike Myers." They did a good job on the makeup. To me,
they
they
did.
did.
And you know Mike Myers, he
Oh
loves
yeah.
to, loves some
Although
makeup.
there is a little bit of the fat bastard accent when he talks.
Yeah, he's like sort of in between his Austin Powers and Fat Bastard, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
He's also in a movie that I love called So I Married an Axe Murderer, which I recommend. I think we will probably watch it at some point. So he tells Lieutenant Hickox about Operation Kino. They recruit him because he used to be a film critic, and Operation Kino involves going to the film premiere, the exact same film premiere we were just talking about in the last chapter. So this is where everybody will converge at this film premiere. All the Nazi big guys will be there. You're going to blow it up and kill them all. He's going to be working with the Bastards, as well as a German double agent, the German movie star Bridget von Hammersmark. So he goes to France and meets up with the Bastards, and they're preparing for his rendezvous with Bridget von Hammersmark. It's going to be him, Wiki, and Stiglitz because they are the two German-speaking bastards, and Hickox can speak German also. I guess Michael Fassbender can speak German in real life because
yeah. It's
Fassbender and all.
Fassbender.
I think
Yeah,
he's like German, half Irish or something.
there's a
Anyways,
combo.
quite a combo. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of cabbage happening there, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
No,
cabbage and
so
sausages
cabbage and sauerkraut and
and beer.
and beer, lots of beer. So yeah,
Anyways, they're getting ready for the rendezvous with Bridget von Hammersmark, and Aldo Raine is not thrilled about it because they're meeting in a basement.
and tell them what's wrong with meeting in a basement, Lindsay.
Well, first thing is you're fighting in a goddamn basement. Hickox is like, well, the plan is to not be fighting. They're supposed to just like meet her. Unfortunately, nothing goes to plan on this day. Things just get worse and worse. First of all, there's a bunch of Nazis in the bar. She's playing games with them because one of the Nazis, his wife gave birth. These are like Nazi enlisted men, so they're kind of low
Right.
level folks. And one lady,
Oh yeah,
uh,
who's tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I was like, what's her deal? But anyways, one of these guys has his wife has just had a baby, so they got the night off and then they went out drinking. So that's why they're there. They were not supposed to be there. It was supposed to just be her and the bastards so they could meet, talk about the plan, and move on from there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Uh, so they arrive and they're hanging out. She kind of sits with them and is giving them some of the intel just very quietly. And she tells them it's moved to a smaller venue. And she's about to tell them another piece of big news, but then The drunk guys are being loud and obnoxious. They want like an autograph. Give me an autograph for my baby and like all this shit. Which she signs, which later we'll learn. Wish she hadn't. And eventually, Lieutenant Hickox is speaking, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's a weird accent you have." And the enlisted man questions him, and he's like, excuse me, I'm an officer. You're an enlisted person. How dare you question me?"
Right.
Him and Stiglitz too, are like, "Go back over there." But then, from the shadows in the corner of the bar, is the Gestapo guy from earlier. And he's like, "Well, I'm an officer too." He's a major. So he's like, so I want to know, where's your accent from? And he comes up with a story, that he's like from this village next to a mountain, and that's why everybody in my village. That's where I talk. We were in this Lenny Riefenstahl film. Perhaps you've seen it. Da da da. They're having fun. They're playing games. Stiglitz looks like he's about to blow his top. If he was a
Yeah,
cartoon, there would be steam coming out of his ears
exactly.
because
Yeah.
of this. Because
And his
he
face would
loves
be bright red.
right. This man loves to kill a Gestapo, and he's got one sitting right next to him
Yeah.
that he can't kill. So they're trying to get him to leave, but he's like, "No, no, no, no! You should have some of this whiskey." And the barman says, "How many glasses?" And here's where things take a real turn. Hickox puts up three fingers, but he puts up his, you're listening to this, people. So if you haven't seen the movie, he puts up his index, his middle, and his ring fingers. That's how I think many of us, perhaps in the United States, do three. If you're saying three of something, that's okay. Jim does it like backwards.
Yeah, I do it
Jim does it like
backwards.
he's doing like a sign language F or sign language for asshole also.
I didn't know
Um,
that. Oh, I have to remember that one. But
yeah.
yeah,
So
so I do three.
Jim does
I
middle finger, ring finger, pinky.
pinky. Yeah.
Well, both of those are wrong because they're not the German three. The German three is thumb, index finger, middle finger,
Which I didn't know.
which I didn't know until I saw this movie. And now if I ever go to Germany, I'm
Now
asking
you
for
know.
three of
Yeah. So
something.
so you don't get tipped off to the Gestapo. So
Exactly. Who knows what they got going on
that
over
or just
there?
order two.
Yeah. And then I'll just get one more later.
Yeah.
You all order your own. How about that?
Right.
We all order
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
one. So that's a giveaway that he's not actually German. The Gestapo guy figures it out, and he has his gun to Hickox's crotch, and then Hickox pulls his out, and then the barman has a shotgun under the bar, and then Stiglitz has his out, and eventually there's kind of a standstill, a sort of a tension, and then Hickox is like, "Stiglitz," and Stiglitz shoots the Gestapo guy right in the crotch. And it just devolves.
Right. That's good.
Just
Then the Gestapo guy pulls his trigger, and then Hickox pulls his trigger,
then the bar guy is shooting, then this table of Nazis over there starts shooting, and Vicky is over there shooting, and
and Stiglitz.
Stiglitz pulls out his big old knife, which he had been sharpening as they were preparing for this, um, and stabs it into the back of the Gestapo guy's skull. He has like knifed him to the table, right? He's like
Yep.
attached to the table now. And everyone is just the poor barmaid. What was her name? Matilda?
Matilda.
Riddled with bullets.
Yep.
Just being
Everybody.
riddled.
Every
Everyone. And of course, the bastards are upstairs. They hear this. And after the hail of bullets quiets, Aldo Raine is like, is anybody alive down there? And at first it's just Wilhelm, who's the guy who just had a baby,
right.
who's drunk. And he has some sort of rifle. And then Bridget von Hammersmark is like, I'm alive too. She has been shot in the leg, but she is alive.
Yeah.
They have a sort of negotiation here. Because Aldo's like, listen, just let us come down and get her. Like, we won't shoot you. You don't shoot us. No guns.
Yeah.
You no gun. We no gun. Just let us. And he's like, I don't believe you. It's a Mexican standoff. They also have grenades. So he's like, listen, you shoot us, we die, but there's grenades up here. You're gonna die too. So eventually they're able to. Well, she eventually Bridget is like tired of this, and she just shoots the Wilhelm.
Yeah. And not just once.
No.
She puts a lot of holes in them. So,
So yeah. Then cut to they're tending to Bridget's wound, a veterinarian. They take her to a veterinarian
I
to have
love
her wound tended to.
because yeah, and I'm sorry, yeah, you cut to this scene and she's on a operating table, but then you look and there's like dogs and stuff
There's
in like
cages full of
cages,
animals.
animals, and it's like because the guy like working on her's got a gown on and everything, but then it's like yeah, he's in a vet's office,
Yeah.
so
Um
I love that.
Aldo has some questions for her because the way it looks is that she set them up. And she's like, I know that that's how it looks, but that's not what happened. So, like, because what was the issue? Because also, when you see this for the first time, you don't know the three issue. You don't know the three issue.
Right, you don't know how he gave
Yeah.
himself away.
So she explains, first of all, she explains why the other Nazis were there. The guy had a baby, da da da. They were there celebrating. She did not expect them to be there. And then she explains that they heard his accent, which they thought was weird. And then he put up the English three instead of the German three. So
That
that
cooked these goose.
gave him away. And to be clear, to get these answers, Aldo Raine is not asking her nicely. He is putting his finger in the bullet hole in her leg to demand answers. Eventually,
And we see this. It's like,
indeed, you see
yeah,
finger, bloody hole, enter, and her like writhing in pain, uh, and like screaming as they're like cleaning the wound and stuff. Eventually, it seems like that explanation is sufficient.
right.
But those were the people she was going to take to the premiere. So
Because they spoke German.
they spoke German. So we got to figure something else out. So, because she tells them the second piece of information that she didn't get to tell the other guys, which is so she told them it's in a smaller venue. The second piece of news, kind of big news, Hitler himself is coming. The Fuhrer is coming.
Der Führer is going to
Um,
be attending.
so she was like, "Do any of you guys speak any other like languages?" And Aldo's like, I speak a little bit of Italian." And she's like, "Okay, great, good enough." Germans don't have a good ear for Italian, so like even if you suck, they won't be able to tell. Um, so he'll be Aldo speaks the best Italian, so he'll be her escort. Donnie speaks the second best Italian. So and then
He's the cameraman or something, isn't he? And
he'll
he
be
does
the cameraman, and then Omar speaks the third best Italian. He'll be his assistant. And Omar's like, I don't speak any Italian. He's like, I said third best.
and then he goes, just keep your mouth shut. As a matter of fact, start now. Start practicing now.
Yes. Meanwhile, Hans Landa has gone to the basement bar. And what do they find there but Bridget von Hammersmark's shoes? They were lovely shoes, to be clear. The wardrobe for the women in this movie, very nice. Top
First
notch.
rate. Yep.
Costume design, production design, like the sets, beautiful.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Beautiful
very
sets.
much so. Yeah.
He also finds the autograph that she wrote. So, like, it has her name on it. It's obvious she was there.
Right.
They
Yeah.
figured out that she's the double agent. But she doesn't know that because she was probably worried about like living, one would think. So, we are all set for everyone to converge in the final chapter of the movie, Chapter 5, Revenge of the Giant Face. Dun, dun, dun.
I love the title.
Yes. So, time for the premiere. Everybody's getting ready. Shoshana is getting dressed. I love it. She's putting on her makeup. They're playing like it's like 80s music. um,
I was going to ask you, yeah, the music. It sounded like it was more modern. Did it to me? Was that okay? It wasn't just me.
yeah, I think it was just probably like a mood thing, but it sounded like 80s music
Yeah.
that they were playing. She's like putting on blush, but she's putting it on like it's like eye black, like she's about to play football, like it's war paint. Because she's like, I'm about to kill a room full of Nazis, like hundreds of Nazis, including
Der
Hitler,
Führer.
Hitler and Goebbels. Like, and
Right.
Goering. I think they named other people like
Yeah.
Goering, someone else.
Yeah.
I forget the fourth one. Sorry. I'm not,
Rommel. Was it Rommel?
I don't, maybe.
I don't
I
remember.
remember Hitler, Goebbels, and Goering but I don't remember.
Sounds like a law firm.
Herman Goring. Shoshana and Marcel have made her little video and they needed to get it like printed and to do the sound. And they're like, well, we have to find a guy to do it. And he's like, no one's going to do this for us. And she's like, okay, well, we're going to find someone who can do it and we're going to threaten to kill them. So they like beat the shit out of this guy. She threatens to like bury an axe in his skull and then also kill his family if he doesn't do it. So they got it done. And I love watching like old film. She's cutting it and like splicing it in to the reels of the movie.
Yeah.
So at like the perfect moment. It is really like the perfect moment. So go ahead, Shoshana. Excellent editor as well as
Well, she
Mistress of
knows
Revenge.
she knows her films. Come
She
on now.
does. She does. So she also looks beautiful. She's in a red gown. She has like a little
Mm,
hat.
hmm.
Very nice. She has a little
Very
tiny purse with a little tiny gun in it.
very classy.
Cute.
Yep.
Cute. Bridget. Bridget and the guys show up. They look very nice. Bridget even has like her cast with like a wedge on it, so she gets like the same height as her high heels. She's like walking on. She should not be. You should be non-weight bearing if you get shot in the lower leg, probably, but who am I? Hans Landa sees her arrive and goes to talk to her. She said she hurt her leg in a mountain climbing accident, which was Aldo Raine's suggestion because he's like, "You're German, isn't that what you all do?" And but when she tells Hans Landa this, he cracks up, like cackles. He has to like walk away for a minute. Like
Yeah, like
it's
he has tears in his eyes. He's laughing so
he
hard.
loses it. And it's like, oh, maybe this wasn't a good thing. And he's like, oh, haha, I'm not making fun of you. And then she introduces the Italians. Aldo Raine is famous Italian stuntman Enzo Gorlomi, but he says Gorlami. He goes Buongiorno. This is what we repeated when we were in Rome. I'm sorry to the people of Rome if you were there in April of 2011 because you heard a group of American college students saying Buongiorno and Grazie 30,000 times. And then Donnie is something Margheriti, Antonio Margheriti. And
Uh-huh.
he just goes, when she says his name, he just does the hand, the little
Yeah.
Italian hand one time.
Yeah.
Just
The like.
and then there's Omar is Dominic de Coco. He's the assistant. And it's so funny. Of course, Landa speaks Italian. He's like, "Oh, buongiorno." He keeps making them like say their names again because he knows they're not Italian.
Right.
And then they say like grazie, arrivederci, arrivederci. It's like full Nazi decor also. It's like the banners with the swastika and the big eagles with the
Yeah.
swastika. And it's just like, ugh, gross. And then Donnie and Omar go to their seats and they're sitting like in the middle, just between a ton of Nazis. And you can see that like on Donnie's face that he's just like, I just want to kill all of these people. Like, I do not want to sit by them. But he has to. He has to be a little bit patient. Hans Landa to Bridget is like, hey, can you just like come with me for a minute so we can talk? And she's like, okay. Basically, he wants to see her foot so he can match her shoe. It's like the opposite, a nightmare Cinderella scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. If the
Like,
shoe
Cinderella
fits.
gets to wear the shoe and become a princess. She gets to put on a shoe and, spoiler alert, be killed immediately after. Want to just point out, lot of shots of the feet. Quentin Tarantino also signature feet stuff. Into feet. Not really a reason for there to be this much feet, but he loves them. He tries the shoe on. He knows it's her. And then this is the first time I feel like we see Hans Landa like feel like he's like losing control a little bit. Like he seems always so just like chill and like fun. And he like snaps and like, tackles her and he strangles her to death.
Yeah. It's
Again,
brutal.
much of the shot is her feet as she
Oh yeah.
struggles.
Yeah.
Her
Like
feet like flapping around as she's like fighting. Meanwhile, he calls down to the Gestapo who grab Aldo. They take all of his weapons, which is like kind of a lot. His giant Bowie knife, which he has stored. He had dynamite like wrapped around his leg and
I like
guns and
I like when he called on the phone. He goes, "The guy in the white jacket." and they and you the next scene is they grab Aldo. You
Yeah,
know, it's like,
bag over his head. It's just like he's just standing there,
yeah.
like unsuspectingly, and then like people descend on him. And then Londa's like taunting him. He headbutts Londa, which I do love.
Oh, I
Uh,
know. He's got the hood and he
he's got the
can't
hood on. He can't
see.
see him, but he can
Yeah,
hear it. But he's
but
Londa's
he
kind of in his face,
and
so he
he gets him good.
yeah, it's a good
So,
headbutt. They put him in a truck and take him away. Udovich is also there. Udovich is played by BJ Novak, who I think probably most known as Ryan on The Office.
okay.
Also, I think known as like Mindy Kaling's like best friend who's not her boyfriend,
Oh,
but
and
they always act like they are
yeah,
in real life.
he's
He was
funny.
her boyfriend on the show, but in real life, like him and Mindy Kaling are like super close in a way that people are like, are you together? So yeah, Udovich and Aldo are in the truck. They get taken to another location. It looks like a bar, and they meet with Londa again. They're talking about their nicknames, which is kind of funny because obviously there's Aldo. Aldo's is Aldo the Apache. Londa's is the Jew hunter, as we talked about, and Udovich's is Little Man, and he's like, "What? They call me Little Man?" He's
Known
like,
in
"Yeah."
Germany as the little man.
And Londa's like, "Actually, I'm surprised by how tall you are. Like, you're bigger than I thought you would be. You're like a normal sized human." He lets him know Donnie and Omar are fine. They're still in their seats. No one has messed with them. Londa's like, basically, I can have them killed, or you get people in charge of you from the OSS on this little radio I have over here. I will surrender with conditions, and you're good. Another great line here, because they say something else, and he goes, "That's a bingo." And he's like, "Is that what you say?" And they're like, "No, you just say bingo." So he goes, "Bingo." Aldo does not really believe that he's going to hold up his end of the bargain, of course. Because again, Aldo knows the rule. Aldo knows what Lando Calrissian didn't. You don't make deals with the bad guys because they don't like to hold up their end. They're bad guys. Inherent in the bad guyness is untrustworthiness.
Exactly.
We can't trust them.
That's why they're bad.
Uh, Back at the theater, Donnie has found the ultimate prize. He found Hitler.
Yep. And he's overjoyed.
He is like, "Ooh, I'm about to get him." Shoshana and Marcel are about to put their plan into motion, so they have kind of a tearful goodbye because they know like one or both of them is probably going to die too. So Marcel is going to go bar the doors of the cinema so that as things burn, the people can't get out. I also really just love the seeing the old projector and how she like puts the new reels on and switches them
Yeah,
and stuff. Like it's just very cool looking.
it
All the
is.
like film stuff. It reminds me of
Uh,
the Fablemans, the
yeah,
Fablemans.
yeah.
Because you see like little whatever Fableman, the one who's like basically Steven Spielberg as a kid,
Uh,
like he splices together little bits of film and he makes all these little film reels. So it's
yeah,
like it
because he
reminded
has
me of
like an
that.
8 millimeter a movie
Yes.
camera or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they show how
So,
you like edit how he would you like when you edited then you had to literally like cut
oh
pieces and like
yeah,
glue them back together and
and glue them back. Yeah, and
so you
yeah,
see that in this movie too, and I think like that is just cool. If you like movies, it's cool to just see that process.
it
Anyways,
is. Yeah.
um, Londa is talking to the OSS about his terms, which are lengthy.
Oh yeah. He's got he was he. It's like he's been ready for this. This just is
Yeah.
not off the top of his head.
No, no, no. Because he doesn't just want a full pardon. He wants like the history books to be rewritten that he was a double agent the whole time,
Right.
that he wants a house in Nantucket. He wants his full military retirement commensurate with the rank he achieved. Like he wants the Congressional Medal of Honor. And also he's like, all of them can get it. They can have it too. He's like winking at Aldo, like,
Yeah.
and he says also like you owe me because I put Aldo's dynamite in Hitler's box, which actually he did. He's like, that part was true. We see him doing it. Because we had seen him go up there before
Right.
to tell Goebbels like everybody's seated, the Fuhrer can come in. But what we didn't see at that time was that he was also slipping the dynamite under the seat. Um, Back to the movie, Goebbels is thrilled. He's loving it. Zoller is not thrilled to watch it, possibly because he's like watching it's like traumatic, I guess.
I don't
Um,
know. Or
he says he doesn't like to watch this part, so it's like hard to figure out like what the motivation is there because he's clearly uncomfortable, but it's like, does he just think he's bad at acting, or like, there are lots of actors who don't want to watch themselves on screen. Is like a trauma thing? Does he feel bad? I don't know. Unclear, and it doesn't really matter because he's a Nazi, so Nazi ain't got no humanity, as they say. So he decides to go up to the projection room and bust in, and once again, Shoshana is like, "Go away, leave me alone." But this time, he's like, "Oh, how dare you talk to me like that?" And he busts in, and then she pretends she's like, "Okay, lock the door," like she's gonna get with him. He's like, "Oh, okay." And then, as he's turning around to lock the door, she shoots him in the back like 4 times
with her little tiny
with
gun.
her little tiny gun in her little tiny purse. The problem here, he's making some moaning noises. Now, if it was the bastards and they heard him make a moaning noise, they would have said, "Pop, pop,"
Right,
again.
right.
Let me
In the
make sure
back of
he's
the
dead.
head.
Yes. She is compassionate. So she goes over to check on him. She turns him over. He's like, "I got a gun." And he shoots her a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Again, it's very graphic. Blood and just like the gunshots like exploding in her body. And
He has a much bigger gun, so
yes,
it's
well, he's
making bigger holes.
yes. So he falls over, and now they're both just going to die up there. She's also, I will just point out, barefoot. Quentin Tarantino loves feet. Donnie and Omar have these little guns that they put on the back of their hands, which I think you said were real guns that
They're
people use at the time.
at the OSS. Yeah, you loaded them, and then what they did, they were like plunger activated. When you punch somebody with it, the gun went off, and the bullet then shot into them. So they're on the back of gloves. So I think there's one in the Spy Museum down in Washington D.C.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
on
yeah, so they
display.
they go up to the guards that are guarding Hitler's box and sort of punch and shoot them at once.
Yeah,
It's kind of funny because Donnie's like, "Omar, if I hit this guy, could you get to this other guy in like 30 seconds?" So Donnie goes and gets the first guy, and Omar comes running down, like sprinting down the hallway to get the other one real quick.
yeah, and jabs him in the kidney, shoots him, in the back. So it's yeah. And again, we see blood spurting.
Yes. And they're about to bust in to see Hitler, but first we see Hitler really enjoying the movie, which makes Goebbels cry, which is just like so like sycophantic, I guess, is the best way. He's just like, "Oh my God, Hitler loves my movie." It's like,
No, it's
ew.
exactly what it is. Yeah, because but did you notice in the subtitles, like Hitler goes, "My dear, it's the best thing you've ever done." My dear.
Mhm.
I don't call my best friend my dear, my male best friend.
Some of that, I think it might just be like
That could be
a language like translation
or
thing.
a European thing, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
So I don't know.
I'm not
Um,
disparaging. I'm just saying,
no,
kind
for
of what
sure. I
yeah,
my if they were saying it in French, I could speak more to the translation, but my German, I got no German.
you know.
Um,
You speak the
but
third best German.
yes, I'm the third best German. I think I could get by. I know a little Dutch, which is just like
Oh, okay.
it's close enough.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that would be like Dutch is like my fourth best language. And in the movie, there's a part where Zoller stands up and says, "I have a message for Germany." And here's where Shoshana's little film cuts in. Because she says, "I have a message for Germany. You're all going to die. And this Jewish woman is going to do it. A Jew is going to do it." Then she says, "Marcel, burn it down." And then he goes, "Oui, Shoshana." And he's behind the screen where they have piled all the nitrate film, smoking a cigarette, and he just tosses it onto the pile. And it just
Uh,
lights up.
it's a
It's
great
a great
scene.
view because the flames are coming up and it's just her face on screen, the giant face, laughing, like cackling at them. And it's like the
Yeah.
way they shot it, it was like you see him earlier doing it. She's standing on the stairs and he's below her. So you're like looking up at her, the angle, and the people try to flee, but the doors are locked. Meanwhile, she also is like, "My name is Shoshana Dreyfus, and this is the face of Jewish resistance, Jewish vengeance," she says. Donnie and Omar kill Hitler and Goebbels, just riddle them with bullets.
Oh,
Just
they're just firing away with their submachine guns and then just keep
absurdly so.
reloading.
They also shoot a little bit into the crowd.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
then turn back to Hitler, who are dead. They're dead, 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 dead. But they're just this is not this is anger. Then their dynamite explodes, so they're obviously dead. So everybody there has died, but mission accomplished.
yeah,
And according to the deal, Londa and his guy Herman they're to drive Aldo and Udovich to the American line, at which point they will take over and deliver him to their superiors.
right.
So they're riding. They get to the American line. Londa's like, "Great, we surrender." Gives back. First of all, he tries to just give back his gun, and Aldo's like, "Mm-mm-mm. Where's my knife?" As he pulls
Yeah.
out a giant Bowie knife. Then he handcuffs him, and Londa's like, "Oh, is this necessary?" He's like, "I got to keep up appearances." And then he just goes bang, shoots Herman. And this is when Londa is like, "Oh, I'm not in charge anymore. Things have taken a turn here."
Oops.
Oh,
I
huh.
may have miscalculated.
Yeah. And of course, Udovich has to go retrieve Herman's scalp for
Oh
Aldo because
yeah,
he
yeah.
has a debit.
That's right. Evidently, he hasn't given him his 100 scalps yet. So,
Yes. And this part's great because Londa's like, "You'll be shot for this." And he's like, "Oh, no, no. I'm not gonna be shot. I might be chewed out, but I've been chewed out before."
by the way, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, Lindsay does a really, really good job of doing Aldo. So, just saying.
Once again, shout out to my people in East Tennessee. He's
Okay.
from he's from East Tennessee. He's from like the Smoky Mountains.
Yep.
So he asks a similar question that he asked earlier. When you get to your nice little, because he's like, "You know what? I get the deal. The deal's fine, right? You helped us get the Nazi high command. Like, I get it. I'd make that deal. You do it. Would you make that deal? Hell yeah, I'd make that deal. I got no quarrel with the deal. But when you get to your little patch of land on Nantucket, you gonna take that uniform off? You got to take it off sometime. I just can't abide that. I'm gonna give you a little something you can't take off." And then he carves a swastika on his forehead. And we see it. We're seeing a knife dig into flesh. We're seeing
Uh-huh.
him flailing on the ground, grabbing on the grass, just like screaming in pain. Then we end the movie with Aldo Raine saying, I think this just might be my masterpiece. The end.
And yeah, that's the end of the movie. It's great closing scene, but
It is. I mean,
great.
just think of, we see Hans Landa in like the opening scene, and he's just like fully in control, ruthless, just reveling in his evil. And he's really brought down by the end. And he really thinks he's in charge until that very end.
And by somebody who's maybe just as ruthless, if not more so than he is, if you think about it, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
not called the bastards for nothing. So it's like, they're scalping people for God's sakes. So this,
Yeah.
this isn't
Although
just shooting.
they're a little more businesslike about it. They're not just like enjoying torturing people for
Oh no,
fun.
no, no.
They're like,
I mean, it's for a purpose. Yeah,
yes.
he said, he goes, our job is to spread terror. He goes, so when they lay awake at night and they can't sleep, it's going to be because of us. So and they certainly have done that because we see even Adolf is like, nine, 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 nine. And he
Yeah.
wants to hear no more about the bastards. So
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, like if their reputation, and it's like 10 of them. Like it's not like a bunch of people.
I know, and it's yeah, it's not like this huge unit or and something, and you know, of course, it is sort of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's all like, you know, oh, what if, you know, this happened or that happened and stuff. So, you know, but hey, I thought it was one, I thought it was a lot of fun to watch.
Hmm.
I did think especially Landa's performance, but most of the other like high-ranking German officers, Nazis and stuff, how arrogant they came
Mm.
across. You know, we're the smartest. We're
Well,
in charge.
they're the master race, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
And but it was, it was like that. How dare you question me, or how dare you question my, my being here, or what my duties are, or what I'm doing, or anything like that, and what are you doing? What is your business? And they would not, it's like they wouldn't even be satisfied with an answer with, just a glib reply. They had to fully explain, just like when they grilled Hickox about his accent and so on.
hmm.
So, yeah, good, really terrific performances, I think, all the way around. There was by
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
in all the key roles.
Hmm. And I think Quentin Tarantino's dialogue is just snappy,
It-
just
it-
just
ver-
good. And I think the delivery, like Brad Pitt's delivery, again, setting aside however Brad Pitt might be as a human person,
oh,
his
no,
delivery of this, like, just on point. Just the accent, his face. If you have not seen this, he is doing the like underbite jaw, the whole thing, like underbite and like frowny mouth face
right?
the whole time. Everyone like looks great in this movie.
They do,
They
they
look
do.
really good. Like
Yeah,
everyone looks like attractive. Like people that I don't like, I don't find like Daniel Bruhl attractive, but like he looks good in this movie. I do think we were talking about, I think the 40s haircuts do well for guys. So,
I agree.
gentlemen,
Hmm.
longer on top, short on the sides, nice side part. Just
Yeah.
consider it. It might
Well,
look good.
the costumes all look great.
The
Uh,
costumes look great, especially and
I
like,
know
yeah.
men were in uniform, but they're, the uniforms, and they were smart looking uniforms, as
Hmm.
far as that goes. So, but
Yeah, and
yeah,
like the women, even like when Shoshana was like just working at the cinema, just in her like casual clothes, they look great.
yeah, oh yeah, it just, yeah, the simple. We talked about that a little bit before. Just the simple, kind of pants, the wide legged pants, and
Hmm.
so in the smock where she and her little shoes and stuff like that. So they did a great job, I think, with everything.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was interesting that I read before this was, and you and I talked about this before, but so actually Quentin Tarantino started writing this in the late 90s before he wrote Kill
Oh,
Bill.
okay.
But I think he like sort of got stuck on it, He struggled with how to end it. And so he was like, let me just focus on Kill Bill. And then he did Death Proof. And he returned to work on this after this. And actually, the character of Shoshana, a lot of what was originally written for her became the bride from Kill Bill. So Uma Thurman's character in Kill Bill is a lot of her attributes and what she does and goes through are what was supposed to
Oh,
be Shoshana. So after he obviously used all of that for Kill Bill, he had to sort of
yeah.
revamp Shoshana when he came to rewrite this. So she was going to be like an assassin with like a list. Like, like in Kill Bill, she has a list of all the
Right.
other the assassins she's going after. So it was going to be like that. But he switched that to the bride and then he
Okay.
changed Shoshana. So
Well, I mean,
but
I think the way he did it with Shoshana, the bastards were more or less like the avenging angels or whatever, but her
mhm.
plan like to, oh, we'll just burn down the cinema. It's like,
Yeah. And it was like personal and
oh
like
yeah.
emotional and like big in a way that like
Exactly.
was,
Yeah, this was a grand plan. It wasn't just
yeah.
taking out one Nazi at a time. So, it was like, hey, we've got the whole kit and caboodle here. Let's just go ahead and just toast them.
Yeah,
So,
and what I appreciate about her is that it seemed like if she had just been like left alone, she would have left them alone.
Yeah, because it was like she wasn't like actively wanting this to happen, but it was, it was like, yeah, a package was, put in her lap, and she said, "Well, let's do something with this, and if we're going to
Mm-hmm.
do it, if you're going to go big, go big or go home."
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
really good choice. I gotta admit. So very entertaining movie to watch, and
Yeah. And
if
unfortunately,
don't say it.
Nazis are around. And this is the vibe I want to have. This is the spirit I want to take with me in dealing with these people, you know?
Yep, exactly. So, just like the Empire and the Klan
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Nazis and fascists, watch
Yep.
out for the little guys,
Mm-hmm.
the people
Mm-hmm.
that you either don't that you overlook or you don't think are capable. So
Yep. Because just remember, folks, Nazi ain't got no humanity.
we're not in the prisoner taking business.
We are in the killing Nazi business, and cousin business is a booming
A booming. I love when he
every
puts a
time.
booming. Well, I think along with this, if you've watched this or seen it, and if you're hopefully you're a Quentin Tarantino fan, of his other things, and then you go on to see the other ones. Hateful Eight, I think, is kind of overlooked, although it was a terrific movie. Bridget Fonda was fabulous in
I haven't
that.
watched that one yet, but I really want to.
Boy, you talk about blood. Oh my
I haven't
goodness.
seen of his. I haven't seen Hateful Eight. I haven't seen Death Proof, but I don't really want to see that. But Hateful, like his movies,
Yeah.
Hateful Eight, Reservoir Dogs,
Oh, that's a great one.
and Jackie Brown. I have not seen.
All three of those. Those are, yeah, those, yeah. Reservoir Dogs is one of my favorites, and then Jackie Brown for just
For Pam Grier.
Pam Grier,
Hmm.
legend. You talk
Yes,
about legend. So,
for sure, for sure. But yeah, I think especially if you're into the revenge vibe,
oh
uh, this movie, the Kill Bill movies, Django Unchained, you get the sort of revenge combined with alternate history in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
yeah,
And some great performances from like great people, right? You get some Samuel L. Jackson, you get some Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained, like
brilliant.
just horribly evil. And Samuel L. Jackson in that movie too. But yeah, and Leo and Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Uh and I think Uma Thurman in Kill Bill,
Yeah.
Lucy Liu in Kill Bill, Oren Ishii, my favorite. My favorite forever. But yeah, so there's quite a catalog. He also directed a really good episode of ER.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
Hmm.
there you go.
I think it's called like Mothers, or it's like about mothers or something. But it's a good episode, and it's very interesting to see like his style in something like that.
I think he's well, not I'm not the I think he's a movie lover's movie maker. It's there he does a lot of different things, and but they do have similar themes. But he's good, I think, at the big stuff. Like I said, like I like the big movies like this, and because the cinematography is also very good, I think, and is
Hmm.
particularly in this movie. Like, and you said the sets, the costumes, and I just yeah, it was great on the big screen. So yeah, thank goodness for
Hmm.
big screen TVs. I'd hate to have to watch this thing on a damn tablet.
I
So,
know. Also, I just want to correct the ER episode that he directed is called Motherhood. It's like from the
oh,
first season of
you're
ER.
oh
And what's
oh
funny is that when I Google it, the picture that comes up is Carol Hathaway and Susan, I forget her, Susan,
oh, I know
the
who you're
one
talking about. Yeah,
doctor,
yeah.
sunbathing on the roof with their feet in the foreground. Man loves his feet. Like hyper violence and feet is what you're gonna get in a Tarantino movie. But there are many to check out. I encourage it. Like, I think Like Pulp Fiction is kind of a weird movie that I don't
Yeah,
always really know what the point is. Like it's not a clear narrative like some of these other ones, but it's
I
still
agree.
like I think the performances are very
Oh
entertaining
yeah.
in it, right? Like
What revitalized John Travolta's career.
right, Royale with cheese,
Because
which is
he
true.
was, yeah.
Is
Is that what they
truly what
call
they
it?
indeed. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he really made that up or really did it.
No, if you go to Europe, it's called a Royal because they don't have quarter. It's not a quarter pounder because they don't use pounds.
Oh, oh. Why would you go to France and eat at McDonald's?
Listen, ask the boys that I studied abroad with. We ate at damn McDonald's in Spain. I was like, y'all, why are we at McDonald's?
So see, that's
I
yeah.
will say they do have special like dishes in different places,
Oh,
and the
good.
McDonald's are much nicer.
Well, I would hope
Um,
so.
I did use to,
Do they all smoke?
some of them, yeah, you can smoke in buildings.
I'm sure.
I ate at the McDonald's in Belgium a lot only because like you could get two burgers for like €1 and I
Oh,
didn't have any
okay.
money. So,
Oh, okay. So
but
you could
yeah,
eat.
no, like it wasn't ever the first choice. Like if I was going to go there to use their Wi-Fi, I would get food.
Oh,
But like
okay.
even like in Belgium, like for fries, like I like McDonald's fries, but like Belgium invented fries, so they have like places that are just like fry places. So you would never buy a McDonald's fries, you could just buy
Yeah,
fries at the friteur.
like real fries, right?
Hmm.
Like yeah,
Double
like
fried. They fry them twice.
so they're extra
Perfection.
crispy.
Yes. They
And,
cook them and then
and
before you order them, they drop them again so you get a little crisp on the outside.
crisp on the outside and tender on the inside, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've
I need to
seen
go back
Guy
to Belgium.
Fieri do that. So
I need to go back just for fries. Oh yeah, yeah. They eat them with mayonnaise, which is not for me.
no, 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 no. And
I will stick with my
I don't
ketchup.
like malt vinegar on it.
Me neither. I will stick with my ketchup, but the fries are delicious.
I'll do
Anyways,
barbecue sauce. So
that I could do barbecue sauce. They also do sometimes like a spicy ketchup, like a curry ketchup, which is
oh
good
yeah,
too.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I think we've covered it.
yeah, good recap, good description. I think on your part in leading us down and great and you know insight. Didn't know about the feet until this episode,
And now
folks,
it's
and
all
just
you're
let
gonna see it
that's all I'm going to
every
watch every time I
time.
see a Quentin Tarantino movie.
I
That's the
hadn't
first
I
thing
hadn't
I'm doing.
watched this movie. Like I learned about the feet, but had not watched this movie since I learned that fact. And so then you could see I was honed in.
I was good because it never registered with
I was
me.
locked in on the feet. I was like, of
It was
course we're
never
seeing her feet so
it was
much.
it was never an issue. I never thought, oh my God, we're seeing feet everywhere. But
Yeah. But now if you like think about it, think back,
yeah,
you're gonna be
yeah,
like, there are a lot of feet in places that like this wasn't necessary
right.
for there to
What?
be feet.
Yeah, yeah. It's gratuitous feet.
Yeah. It is. It is. I mean, the
Yeah,
people have like their feet are fine. Like
yeah.
shout out
So
Diane Kruger, great job.
I mean,
Diane
he could.
Kruger, we
Yeah.
didn't talk about her. Diane Kruger, she played Bridget
Oh,
von Hammersmark. She's a famous actor. She was in like the National Treasure movies. She's in a
yeah.
bunch of other stuff. She's German. She's married now to she used to be with Joshua Jackson. Now she's with Norman Reedus.
I
Um
don't know either of those people.
Norman Reedus was on Walking Dead. That was like her big thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Diane Kruger, National Treasure movies. She's in this. She was on the FX series The Bridge.
Oh,
She's
okay.
been in a bunch of other movies, but
Great
and she
act.
was she was also in Troy. She plays Helen in
Oh,
Troy.
oh, oh, okay. Yeah. Very striking looking.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, and yeah, very good. Really good in this. So I
yeah.
just really like
She's
her.
very funny in this and like kind of snarky, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, she's supposed to be this big famous, German film star, and then it turns out she's a double agent for for
Yeah,
the British. So,
yeah,
which is kind of cool.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So anyway, sorry, I forgot. I forgot
no,
about
no,
we
no,
didn't
no.
talk about her.
Well, a big shout out, yeah, to you because she was
Shout
a
out to
big
Diane
part of
Kruger
this.
and her pedicurist.
Yeah.
Um. Anyways,
And her podiatrist. Yeah.
yes.
So,
Shout out to all of them looking out for the feet. I mean, if they hadn't, would she be in this movie? Who knows?
I don't know. As I was going to say, is that something he looks at? Well, let me see your feet. It's like
You got to show
Quentin.
up in sandals for your audition
Quentin
with.
has an odd casting couch, so
Oh
it's just yeah.
God. Oh God. Oh God.
Anyway,
Guess what company produced this movie? The Weinstein Company. This was,
yeah,
before we all
pre
knew.
I was gonna say pre scandal, right?
Yeah. Anyways,
Good
wherever.
choice.
Thank you. Just remember, everybody, Nazis are bad. Okay?
Well,
We don't like Nazis.
right. No. Nazis bad.
We don't have to like hear both sides when it comes to Nazis, you know? It's not it's not
There
it.
is no but. If
Exactly.
yeah,
Not like he's a Nazi,
but
but no, 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 no,
no,
no. He's
no,
a
no.
Nazi, period.
Exactly.
And that's the end that we don't need to know anymore. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this so you can get all of our episodes when they come out each Monday. You can rate, review, leave a comment. We prefer it if it's nice. If not, we're gonna call Donnie. You'll hear his bat hitting the wall as he
That's
comes down the
right.
hallway.
As he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram at Some of Our Parts Pod. You can see all the other movies that we've talked about, quite a range. We try to be thematic. February is coming up, so we're kind of in a Black History mode with the next few picks that we'll be doing, so look out for that. We post little previews of what's to come a day or two before, and whatever else we decide to share on there. And with that, bye bye.
Take care.